Hi, I'm Simon Kohler. I'm Hornby's Product Development and Marketing Director. Good question. How does it make me feel? It makes me feel incredibly proud, quite frankly. I've been lucky enough to apparently spend 40% of Hornby's 100 years as being part of the team. Why has it succeeded? I think because it from the very start, it had a strong ethos, it had a good product background, and has moved along really with the times. The selected items were chosen through, sort of highlighted the high spots, well, I consider high spots or key items through each decade. And so, for example, in the 60s, the Rocket was a key model. In the 40s, the die-cast body locos, which were Hornby 00, so we managed to recreate those with a modern twist, of course. So it's looking for key features right the way through each decade and settling on them. It's a good question. I love the tin plate 1920s #1 loco in O gauge, and I'd probably go for the Rocket if we're looking for 00. Yeah, Rocket. Take the second part first. It is isolated from the current range, so you won't see Steampunk in the Hornby catalogue. It's a totally different brand and a different brand approach. The idea came really from Chief Operating Officer Tim Mulhall, accompanied his daughters to a Comic-Con event where Steampunk was featured, and he was just bowled over at the huge number and people there who were so passionate about what they were doing, and came back. He got his juices going, and with sort of input from a gentleman, Laurie Culver, who's been talking about Steampunk for a good number of years, put a fairly tight range together, and putting our toe in the water and really seeing how it goes. But the reaction actually been very positive, because it appeals. It isn't just appealing to model railway enthusiasts. It's certainly appealing to those whose hobbies and passions are maybe to do with war gaming or fantasy gaming and that sort of thing. So that's the market. But and I've always felt like this: if you can get people, even from a fantasy point of view, using model railway or as a basis, then it's only a short step to them developing that hobby, adding a bit of scenery, maybe getting another loco, developing it as a worthwhile pastime. Well, I think in this day and age, it is important that we explore. That's part of our job. That's part of my job, to look for different avenues where we can get people interested and engaged with modelling railways, and we'll do any way we can. I mean, we recently this year had a thing called the Family Fun Project, which was a box which contained virtually everything for you to build a simple train layout. And with a properly full colour guide, video and all the rest of it, because you have to accept these days, people need to be shown step by step by step, and it's proved very successful.
Wargaming show.
I think no, you'll see me in a white shirt and dark trousers. Yeah, it's a very positive sign. We have lots of plans. You know, the business, our business, the model railway business needs to be seen. We need to be proactive. We need to be showing that there's new items, that there's investment. We have confidence, certainly in the brand, in the market. Being a market leader, you know, we need in many ways to show the way, and you know, we're quite fortunate in that. So this current range is sort of a build-up of sort of 2 years of planning and so on. You know, it's really, we've got two ranges here. We've got the celebratory range, and then we have our main range. How we top it next year, well, you wait and see. The simple strategy is that, first of all, you know, the 66 was tool and a model we've had in the range ever since really we obtained the Lima tooling. So that's the strategy there, it's always there. It's a very, very popular loco out in the real world, has lots of liveries, and you know, people like the various liveries. So from a tactic point of view, it's not really, you know, it's there, it's a market. And I've always believed that, you know, for the price, you know, it's £75. If you want a sound unit in there, that's less than £100 for a sound unit. Doesn't have all the bells and whistles, that's something that's costing 160, you know, £200. And people will pay the money and take the choice. So there's no tactic, it's just, you know, there's a demand for it. That's our job. You know, we supply what people want. We get no bonus points for supplying something that people don't want. Modern image is tricky because it's limited. If you look at steam, although that's getting very tight, if you look at steam locos, there's still some that, you know, can do, but they have to be viable. And I think, you know, we're getting to the point where locos are becoming less viable to produce. You know, have to look at longevity, different liveries, etc. With modern image, whatever that is, it's very, very restricted. You know, I feel sometimes naked that we don't have a modern 37 or a 47, but I mean, the world and his wife seems to have all those. That's why, you know, our railroad range, you know, we've done the sort of the railroad plus, where we add a bit more livery on it, and again, people can take the choice. It is important. There are one or two gaps, but we have to be very careful with it. But the APT is iconic. I've wanted to produce that for some years. The opportunity has happened for us to do that, and yeah, it is an exciting project. When Hornby first did it, they did have plans to produce others, but of course, with the demands of the APT, they just really stayed at the 5-car set. It's our own design, our own work. We haven't stumbled across it anywhere in a bin or anything like that. No, we've been up to crew. We've done, you know, we've done the proper job. I mean, from a personal point of view, being of an age, of course, the Beatles are very important to me anyway. Again, but that was a livery, a Yellow Submarine livery I wanted to do way back when it was first put on. But for one reason or another, technical reasons, a lack of interest here, it was unfortunately shelved. It was revived, and I was very excited to revive, when we were approached by the licensing executive representing the Beatles and mentioned Yellow Submarine, and why can't we put it on a vehicle or on the Eurostar, which was great. It gave us some challenges, but we've met them and they are over the moon. I'd love to be able to show you one, but the sample we got had to go over to the States for them to approve, but they literally said it was a much better representation than they actually expected. I always say with questions like that, you never know. I never say never, I never say yes. You know, wait and see. I think it's important that we move ahead with the times. You're using to film me an iPhone. You're recording me on an iPhone. Not that long ago, I'd be staring at a big camera and I'd have a big recording machine by me. There's no reason on earth why we shouldn't be working forward and developing control systems that we can use off the iPhone or similar devices. I can be in the States and I can control the temperature of my house some 4,000 miles away. So why can I not control the train, model railway, using my iPhone? It's really that simple. It's moving forward. It's also showing that, you know, our interest just does not stop at producing new locos or new coaches, new wagons. We're interested in developing the hobby. You then have to remember that the fascination for youngsters to actually use an iPhone to control something, you know, they're always playing games on it and all the rest of it. To them, it is second nature. Why can't I control my train using my phone? You know, it's part of their life. We've grown up with it. They've been born into it. So I want a phone. I can control my train. I control the heating. You know, I can look. I can be at work and I can see who's knocking on my door. It's an integral part of life now. So you use the tools now to control the train. It's also a lot more elegant and we can get a lot more features into it, like sound, inertia control and all the rest of it, at a very, very competitive price. We're not necessarily talking a year's delay. What we had there, we used various factories, and for one reason or another, one of the factories had to be moved. They'd already started to set the factory up further into northern China, but you don't just find labour. You may think it unbelievable. You can't just find skilled labour. They have to be trained. Unfortunately, in between them, or before they were forced to move, we had placed orders with the manufacturer to produce things like the Merchant Navy, the Packet and all the rest of it. They've tried their very best and we have had some product through, but things like the Azuma actually bring their factory to all. They can't produce anything else because it's a 5-car unit and it has to be all done at once. So they've been very good, and we have to take into account obviously their feelings as well, because it's quite an emotional thing. Once you place an order, you know, having to take it away. So you have to be careful because you don't want to upset anybody. But we have been able to lift some product, which is relieving the backlog a bit, relieving the blockage, placing that with another manufacturer, and so things will start to come through. In fact, the Merchant Navies we have over there, we just had sort of first decorated samples and running samples, so they're not that far away, but it will take a bit of time for this backlog to come through. It's actually very important. It's an alternative range. The reason railroad exists is, and I have to say the Hornby Magazine was right on top of it from the very start, was that as Hornby's products were evolving and we were adding more expensive locos at the expense of the lesser detail ones, you were finding that there was a big gap between sets and detailed locos, big price gap. So imagine you're a parent, you've just bought a train set for £100. You take a fancy for a lovely A4 loco, which is £140. Well, for them, there's no correlation. And they think, oh, well, hang on a minute, I don't understand this. So what you have to do is provide a stepping stone. And so the railroad range was a stepping stone. Again, like everything, it evolves. and people would buy the sets the locos or the wagons, etc., either to add to their train set, or you get the modeller who would buy the raw material, the railroad loco, and then enhance it himself. So it's a bit of modelling. What we've learned with the 66, and this is how the range will evolve and has evolved, is that if you add more detail, then it's appreciated more by the enthusiasts. So that's why it's Railroad Plus. The motors are always sound. We've always got lots of pickups. I mean, they're good runners. We've just moved back a bit from the livery, the decoration. We've put the decoration back. So that's why you'll see those locos, your 47s, etc. Anything with a name will have an H nameplate. So it's, if you like, it's adding a bit more value to it, but maybe a bit more appealing to folks who are modelling but maybe don't have such a big budget. The thing is, your personal favourite is always the latest one. It's the one that goes through. I mean, I can give you sort of milestone locos and things, but personal favourite at the moment was I've always loved the P2 and the W1, and it was always at the back of mind to do a P2 and lovely to do a W1, but it's a justification thing. Before I went off on my sabbatical, I'd actually put on the list a W1 which was like the P2, put the P2 in the railroad range, and if I had remained, I would have probably gone, it's W1 is railroad. I came back and they said, we've done the W1, it's highly detailed and all the rest of it, but we can't justify the cost. So it was really a question of re-looking at it, and I felt we could justify it by producing the other body, the modification. So it was a challenge, but for me, out of this year, I've got two favourites, if I'm allowed. One is certainly the W1, because that's something I've been wanting to do for some time. But two, the Rocket. I think Stephenson's Rocket. Mind you, the tin plate is another one which is quite nice. I wouldn't mind that on the shelf. But yeah, I mean, the problem is very difficult because you live with these things and they all become part of your DNA, I suppose. Yes, yeah, and then we're working out probably something like 80% of my life we'll be working here. Yeah, no, it's great. There's so much more to it. It doesn't end. This is just looking back in history. We're very much a company that's looking forward. Hence things like the HM 6000 and so on. So yeah, lots of things to offer.